Welcome back to the Bounce plugin tutorial. Alright, so if you haven't seen the previous parts, please do that. Okay, so how far we have gone now is this level where our object bounces like that, which is all good. But now we need to create a user interface. So in order to do that, what happens here is normally in our generic plugin, we just add the interface in here, but on this one we need to create another function called options. Now what option is if I go back to layout and double click on my plugin, Lightwave is going to run this options function. So this is where we have to put all the controls for the user. So let me go back here. As we already know, we use Rick begin, something like that. So I'm just going to name this one bounce settings, like so. And then let me put a Rick size, something like that. I'll put it at 250 pixels by 200 pixels. You can put any values you want. And then I'm going to say Rick open. Now, in our previous functions, we were using Rick post. Now the difference between Rick post and Rick open is that on Rick post, let me show what that does. Let's go here and remove this, add it again, and then double click. So once we double click here, we have a user interface. Now Rick post creates this OK and cancel, because once this is open, you can't edit anything in Lightwave. So this is what is called a modal control, modal like this. But what we need is what is called a non-modal version. Now this non-modal is acquired by saying Rick open, not Rick post, Rick open, like so. So here's the difference. If I use Rick open, it means when I double click here and this thing comes up like so, I can still move things around here while this is active. So this is good because we want the user to be able to adjust the gravity, the mass, and so on while actually checking to see if the values are okay. Okay, so that's the difference. So there we go. Now let's add some controls here. So first of all, we need to know what we want to control. What parameters do we want the user to actually be able to adjust? So in this case, we want to be able to adjust, for example, the start position, right? We want to know, so let's name it my start. You can name it anything you want. Now let's put a control here. Now CTL, first of all, there are two types of controls for numbers. The CTL number and the CTL integer. Integer is for whole numbers. So since the frame numbers are not decimal, I would rather we use a CTL integer. So first of all, we are going to tell the user that this is a start frame. That's the caption. And the default is 0. So we do the same thing for... now this one is the, I'll create this one as a start position, the Y position. Now this one can have decimal places, so I'm going to use CTL number and say start Y position. Okay, the default one is 5. And let's add one more control. Let's say my gravity. CTL, this one also can have decimal places, so let's put gravity. The default value is 10, but be careful, use -10, otherwise your object will go in the opposite direction. My mass, of course, we need to change the mass, so CTL, this can also be a decimal, so number. And let's do mass. The default value is 30. And what else do we need? The bounce, of course, how much the bounce level is, CTL number, this is bounce, and here the value is, I think we had added something like a 15 as the default. Alright, so let's see what we have so far. And there we go. Pretty neat. Now, the thing is, there are certain controls with the slider here where the user can click and slide. That is quite useful. So if you want that, you have to use CTL mini slider. So let's do that just for one of these. Mini slider. Now, mini slider requires two more things here, the maximum and the minimum and the maximum value. So I'll say minimum is 0, maximum 120, because that's what my timeline has. But if you want to be a bit more clever, you can say scene dot preview start, because the preview start is the starting frame number in that particular scene. And then of course you can do that to the other side and say preview end. So instead of just putting numbers, it's going to check what the start and the end is of that scene. So let's check that out. Oh, previews end. So I've put an S that like so. I wasn't correct. So there we go. So now we have a slider which we can click and drag like so. Now the only thing is to get these values to actually be used inside our plugin. So in order to do that, we're going to grab these items, because remember one thing, the values that you create inside a function cannot be accessed inside another function. In order for that to happen, we have to make them global so they can be accessed by all functions, and to do that we put them at the top here. So let me do this just to create another section here and put these values. Now I don't need these parts here, I just need the names of the values, the names of the variables rather, something like that. Something like so. So what will happen is this: once the plugin loads, these will be equal to null like this, or new in this case. New is like 0 or nothing, it's like nothing. So once they're equal to that, once the user opens the options panel, those guys are going to be assigned these values to these controls, so we can use them. So to avoid having errors, we have to check if these things are actually set before we try to use them. So in order to do that, we use an if statement. Now there's one thing that checks if the requester is active. So this is going to be called Rick is open. That's what it's called. Open close bracket like that. So if requester is open, and by the way, the reason we want to add an and is because we want these values to only be active before the simulation starts, because we don't want to be setting these initial values every time the process runs. So we want to set them before the process starts running, just like here. So let me grab these guys, or before I do that, let me finish the if statement. If, and then at the same time, and let's use the geeky and frame, the current frame, is less than or equal to the start time. So if that is true, then we should set these guys. Let's bring that here. So what this means is, for as long as the frame, we haven't reached the start of the simulation and this is on, it means the user is actually changing some values. So let's grab those values and put them here. So gravity will be equal to my gravity, which is this one. But remember, this is not a value, this is the control. So we should put dot value at the end to get the actual value. I'll copy this since I'll be using it a lot. This one also will go to my mass dot value, my bounce dot value. Velocity is automatic, so we don't need to set that. We don't need the position Y. The position Y, we can set it directly to my start pause dot value. The time step, if you want that adjusted, you can add it there, but I didn't add it there. The ground position, you can also add a control for that. The start time is there, so we're going to say my start dot value. And I think that's about it. So let's test the theory here if things are actually working. So what I want is to go back here and change the start position to 0 so that we can actually be adjusting it from our interface. So let me try that. It starts at 0, go back, but if I double click and then increase it to, let's say 30 or 29, so we wait and boom. So which means our interface is actually working now. So for example, let's change the bounciness. Let me put the bounce at 20 and see how that works. Boom, and it's bouncing more and more. All right, so that's the end of this tutorial. If you found it very helpful, please hit the like button, share it, and subscribe. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, the link is in the description. I would really appreciate that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you the next time we start another tutorial on LScript for Lightwave.